puppy was returned for the 7th time to the shelter. Then the staff made a shocking discovery. Benji was a beautiful dog, and at only 4 years old, he was full of life and energy. The only issue was that he had been adopted 7 times, and every time he found a new home, he was quickly returned to the shelter with little or no explanation. What was wrong with Benji? Why were so many families rejecting this poor little dog? Well, when one staff member took him home for the night, she made a shocking discovery that explained everything. Benji was a small but happy and friendly dog. He loved people giving him attention and playing with him, and was undeniably one of the most affectionate dogs ever. That's why people loved to adopt him. But every time a family took him home, they would return him within 3 or 4 weeks. The staff at the shelter were mystified as to what went wrong when the families got Benji home, and their explanations didn't help clear things up. One family said he just wasn't a good fit in the home, and another family said they just changed their minds. One family said that he was too energetic for them, while another said that he never wanted to go out for walks or anything. One of the families even said Benji wasn't friendly enough, something that staff could barely believe. It just didn't add up. There was no common reason why Benji kept being returned to the shelter. He seemed like the perfect dog, but there was something about him that families clearly couldn't get on with. So, to get to the bottom of the issue, one young student working at the shelter volunteered to take him home and observe what he was like in a setting away from the shelter. Besides, she had always gotten along with Benji and loved to fuss over him and play with him whenever she was working. She loved his high energy and happy personality and thought he was both funny and cute. It was a smart match. So Clara ushered an overexcited Benji into a carrier and carried him to her car. All Clara could do was smile at his enthusiasm, but truth be told, she was nervous about how this would go. Were all the families right about Benji? Was there something wrong with him? Was he that different when he was away from the shelter? She hoped this wasn't the case. When Clara arrived home, she opened the cage and allowed Benji to wander out of it at his own pace. She didn't want to push him or make him feel uncomfortable, so she left the room and tended to her other pet while Benji plucked up the courage to explore his new surroundings. After around half an hour, the little dog slowly started to step out of his cage and look around. He might have been an excitable dog full of energy, but that didn't stop him from being a little curious when in a new and unfamiliar place. He started sniffing around and eventually made himself at home, running around the room and happily yapping at everything. That was the Benji that Clara knew. Eventually, Clara returned. As she opened her door to the room, though, she was followed by her old dog, Maxwell, and one of her cats, Lizzie. Immediately, Benji changed. He charged at the 2 new animals, baring his teeth and violently growling. He might only have been a small dog, but he certainly was intimidating. Lizzie the cat simply leaped out of the way, but Maxwell was unable to do that and quickly retreated behind Clara. Shocked at the sudden chaos that was unfolding before her, Clara quickly ushered her cat and dog out of the room. Then, as if by magic, Benji suddenly transformed back into the happy, hyperactive dog that she knew from the shelter. It was so strange. This was when things started to click into place in Clara's head. All of Benji's previous owners had not really given good, consistent reasons as to why they had returned him, but perhaps they were covering up his violent behavior. She made a mental note to check out this theory as soon as she arrived at work the next morning. For now, though, Clara made Benji comfortable with food, water, and blankets, and she made sure she triple-checked the door was closed. She didn't want any fights breaking out overnight. Luckily, the next morning came without incident, and Clara set off to the shelter to work. When she arrived, The first thing she did was pull up Benji's file and find all of his previous owners. She was determined to make sense of things and get to the bottom of the issue with Benji. She started to make calls to the various families, and one thing soon became abundantly clear. All of the homes that Benji had been to also had other pets in them. Just as Clara had suspected, Benji had displayed violent and aggressive behavior towards the family's other pets, and they had no other option than to return him to the shelter. What was also clear was that none of the families wanted to get Benji into any trouble or, even worse, be put down. So they covered up the violent behavior in hopes that he would be able to find a family that suited him. Finally, it all made sense. Now there was a common reason why Benji kept being returned, and the best thing of all was that Clara could actually do something about it. She could try training Benji to be less hostile toward other pets and teach him how to live alongside other animals harmoniously and happily. That maybe he could find a family that could love him and take him in and keep him forever. But the big question was, would the training actually work? Sometimes dogs can't alter their behaviors no matter how much time and energy you put into them. Clara hoped with all her heart that Benji wasn't one of those dogs. She started slowly by letting Benji and her pets see each other through a gate. Her pets were very curious, but Benji remained angry and hostile, barking and biting at the gate. For several days things remained tense, and it seemed as if Benji really was just a dog that would forever remain dangerous to other animals. But over time, he started to get used to their presence. It was as if a miracle was slowly unfolding before Clara's eyes. There was one evening where she caught her cat, Lizzie, sitting in the same room as Benji, and he wasn't making any kind of fuss, only playing with a ball. She soon felt confident enough to open the gate and let her dog, Maxwell, wander in and meet Benji again. As Maxwell walked in, Benji jumped up, unsure of how to react. He was used to Maxwell's scent by now, but he still seemed a little wary. On the upside, though, he wasn't showing any violent behavior. Had Clara done it? Had she made Benji into a more animal-friendly dog? She was unsure and remained on high alert as she watched Benji walk up to Maxwell. Was he about to attack? What she saw melted her heart. He started sniffing Clara's old dog, and his tail started wagging. Soon enough, the two dogs were happily playing with a ball and chasing each other around. There was no sign of violence or aggression. It was as if the two dogs had known each other for a lifetime. When they were done playing and resting on Benji's bed, Lizzie, the cat, even wandered up and gave Benji a few licks before curling up to sleep between the two dogs. It was heartwarming to see, and Clara was proud that all her hard work had paid off. The time came for her to return Benji to the shelter so he could once again go up for adoption. But the strangest thing happened. She didn't want to say goodbye. Over the course of Benji staying with her, Clara had become very attached to the little dog, and she could tell that he had grown attached to her too. He even seemed to enjoy having new friends. So Clara made a big decision. She was going to be the one to adopt Benji and give him a forever home. He was comfortably part of her family already, so she couldn't turn him away now. While Clara wasn't sure about Benji at first, it just goes to show that some love, attention, time, and most importantly, training really go a long way. Luckily, after a little training, Benji not only became a good dog, but a great dog. How would you have dealt with a dog like Benji? Could you have handled his naughty antics, or would you have returned him to the shelter too? I'd love to hear from you, so be sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below.